In the crystalline spires of Raka Prime's Central Intelligence Hub, first observer Nix stood frozen before the holoscreen, their iridescent scales shifting from calm blue to alarmed purple. The transmission from Earth played again, a small creature, dark and sleek, moving with impossible grace as it stalked its prey. The creature pounced, taking down something several times its size with lethal precision. "Pause sequence," Nix commanded, their four-fingered hand trembling slightly. "Analysis complete." The AI responded in its characteristic monotone. "Subject demonstrates unprecedented hunting efficiency. Mass-to-force ratio exceeds known biological limits. Stealth capabilities suggest advanced evolutionary adaptations." Nix's secondary hearts beat faster as they processed the implications. The Rakan Collective had been studying Earth for decades, carefully analyzing humanity's potential as either allies or threats. But this changed everything. "Show me the designation again," Nix requested. The word appeared in Earth English, "cat." Across the chamber, second observer Zar approached, their scales a skeptical shade of green. "You can't be serious, first observer. This small creature is causing such alarm." Nix gestured at the frozen image. "Look at the data, Zar. These cats live inside human dwellings. They sleep beside them, observe their most private moments. The humans claim to have domesticated them, but our behavioral analysis suggests otherwise." The holoscreen flickered to life again, showing multiple clips in rapid succession, cats landing on their feet from impossible heights, moving through darkness with glowing eyes, fitting through spaces that seemed too small for their bodies. "The humans are either unaware or deliberately deceiving us," Nix continued. "These beings violate multiple laws of physics. They appear to have mastered molecular manipulation, gravity distortion, and possibly dimensional folding. And the humans keep them as pets." Zar's scales shifted to match Nix's purple alarm. "A clever deception. The humans parade these creatures as harmless companions while maintaining a force of biological superweapons in plain sight." The analysis chamber hummed with tension as more data poured in. Images of cats in every human settlement, on every continent. Millions of them, integrated into human society at every level. The Rakan observers watched in growing unease as humans documented their cats' every move, sharing the footage globally. "Look at this behavior," Nix pointed to a new sequence. "The humans serve them food in special bowls. Provide them with dedicated resting platforms. Create entertainment structures specifically for their use. These are not pets, this is appeasement." Zar's analytical mind raced through the possibilities. A symbiotic relationship, perhaps. The humans provide comfort and sustenance, and in return, protection, Nix finished. Or insurance against invasion. What better way to safeguard your species than to align yourself with beings of such power, while simultaneously concealing their true nature? The implications rippled through the hub like a shockwave. Within hours, the High Council convened an emergency session. Nix presented their findings to the assembled elders, whose scales shifted through a rainbow of emotional colors as they watched the evidence. High Elder Ven, their scales a deep gold of wisdom, spoke first. "If these creatures are indeed as powerful as the data suggests, we must proceed with extreme caution. Our first contact plans must be completely revised." "But surely," Council Member Lyr interjected, their scales flickering with uncertainty, "if the humans have managed to forge an alliance with such beings, that speaks to their diplomatic capabilities." "Or their cunning," another council member countered. "Perhaps they recognized the cat's superiority and found a way to survive through submission." The debate raged for hours, but one thing became clear: the discovery of Earth's feline population had fundamentally altered the Rakan approach to first contact. Preliminary plans for a show of force were hastily abandoned. Instead, a new strategy emerged, one of careful diplomacy and respect. As Nix left the council chamber, they passed the Great Archive, where images of Earth's cats now dominated the displays. A small group of young Rackens stood watching footage of a cat sleeping in a sunbeam, their scales shifting between fascination and fear. "We must learn from the humans," Nix overheard one say. "How did they achieve such an arrangement with beings of such power?" Nix's scales rippled with a complex emotion somewhere between amusement and concern. The humans had managed to keep this secret for their entire recorded history. How many other surprises awaited the Racken collective when they finally made contact? In their private chamber that evening, Nix reviewed the footage one more time. A cat sat in a window, tail twitching as it watched birds outside. Its movements were too precise, its patience too perfect. Either evolution had created the ultimate predator, or something far more extraordinary was at work. The first observer made their final log entry for the day. Earth's true power may not lie in their technology or their numbers, but in their ability to forge alliances with beings beyond our comprehension. We must approach with diplomatic precision. The fate of the collective may depend on it. As Nix's words were archived, across Earth, millions of cats continued their daily routines, unaware that they had just become the most feared entities in this section of the galaxy. Ambassador Rachel Morgan stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel Concordia, watching the crystalline surface of Raka Prime grow larger. Behind her, a soft meow drew her attention back to the carrier safely secured to her quarters wall. "I know, Luna," she said softly to her black Norwegian forest cat. "I still can't believe you're officially part of this diplomatic mission." The UN Security Council's insistence that she bring her cat had seemed bizarre, but the Rackens had been oddly specific in their requirements for first contact. Commander David Torres appeared in her doorway, his usually stern expression softened by amusement. "The Racken delegation just sent their final protocols, Ambassador. You won't believe this, they've requested that your supreme entity be present at all major negotiations." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "They mean Luna?" That's the third time they've referenced her in official communications without actually using the word cat. Something's not quite right here. Intel suggests they're being deliberately circumspect, David replied. Almost like they're afraid of saying the word. Luna stretched luxuriously in her carrier, completely uninterested in her apparent diplomatic significance. Rachel had chosen her as a companion for her calm temperament, a quality that would prove invaluable in the coming days, though not for the reasons anyone expected. The Concordia's landing was met with elaborate ceremony. The Racken welcome party stood in perfect formation, their scales shifting in carefully controlled patterns of diplomatic blue and respectful gold. First observer Nix led the group, flanked by a contingent of what appeared to be security personnel, though their weapons were conspicuously absent. Rachel descended the ship's ramp, Luna's carrier held carefully in her hands. The moment the carrier came into view, a visible ripple of color changes swept through the Racken crowd, flashes of purple alarm quickly suppressed back to diplomatic blue. "Greetings, Ambassador Morgan," Nix spoke in perfectly practiced English, their scales betraying only the slightest tremor of anxiety. "We are honored by the presence of your powerful associate." Rachel blinked. "Thank you, First Observer. Luna is indeed a cherished companion." A murmur ran through the Racken crowd at Luna's name, scales flickering in complex patterns. Rachel noticed several observers making rapid notes on their data devices. The procession to the diplomatic center was unlike anything in Earth's history. The Rackens had cleared the entire route, establishing what they called a zone of respect that stretched for kilometers. Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that it looked more like a containment corridor. Inside the center, the real confusion began. The Rackens had prepared what they clearly thought was appropriate accommodation for Luna, a raised platform covered in precious metals and rare minerals, surrounded by force field generators disguised as decorative pillars. "Your Supreme One's designated observation post," Nix announced with carefully measured reverence. Luna, finally released from her carrier, took one look at the elaborate platform, turned around, and settled into a patch of sunlight on the floor. The Racken delegation's scales went haywire. "Extraordinary," one whispered audibly. "It chooses to demonstrate its power by refusing our offerings." Such confidence, another added. It knows we are no threat. Rachel exchanged glances with Commander Torres, who was struggling to maintain his diplomatic composure. Something was definitely lost in translation here. The first diplomatic session was even more surreal. Every time Luna shifted position or batted at a dust mote, the Rakan delegates would fall silent, their scales rippling with attentive colors. When she began grooming herself, First Observer Nix called for a brief recess, urgently whispering to their analysts about ritual preparation. During one particularly tense moment of negotiation regarding trade routes, Luna decided it was the perfect time to do what cats do best. She jumped onto the massive conference table and walked directly across the holographic display, scattering light patterns everywhere before settling down right in the middle of the projected trade routes. The Rakans were beside themselves. The Supreme One intervenes. Nix declared, their scales a brilliant mix of awe and fear. Clearly, these proposed routes are inadequate. Rachel watched in amazement as the entire Rakan delegation scrambled to redesign their trade proposals around the spot where Luna had chosen to nap. She caught Commander Torres's eye, and he gave her the smallest of nods. Something very strange was happening here, but somehow it was working in Earth's favor. That evening, in her assigned quarters, Rachel composed her first private report to UN headquarters. The Rakans appear to have significantly misunderstood something about Earth, and specifically about cats. However, this misunderstanding, while concerning, has created an unprecedented diplomatic advantage. Luna's presence has somehow positioned us as a far more significant power than we actually are. Recommend playing along until we understand the full scope of this situation. She looked over at Luna, now curled up in a perfect circle on her bed. I don't know what they think you are, sweet girl, but you might just help us secure the most favorable first contact treaty in human history. Little did Rachel know, at that very moment, First Observer Nix was submitting their own report to the High Council. The humans continue their masterful strategy of understated power. Their Luna entity demonstrates complete dominance through calculated indifference. Most concerning is its ability to phase through our most sophisticated force field technology as if it doesn't exist. Recommend immediate approval of all reasonable human requests. The alternative is unthinkable. Junior Science Officer Crix wasn't supposed to be in the diplomatic wing after hours. Their research clearance technically ended at sunset, but curiosity had always been their greatest strength, and their biggest weakness. The young Rakan's scales shifted between nervous green and excited orange as they approached Luna's quarters. The door was ajar, and Crix heard Ambassador Morgan's voice, "I'll be back in an hour, Luna. Try not to cause an interplanetary incident while I'm gone." Crix quickly pressed themselves against the wall, scales matching the crystalline surface perfectly, a survival trait that proved equally useful for scientific observation. As the ambassador's footsteps faded, Crix gathered their courage and peeked into the room. Luna lay on a windowsill, bathed in the light of Raka Prime's 3 moons. Her tail twitched slowly as she watched the night creatures flitting past the window. Crix's scientific mind raced, noting every detail. The entity's energy signature was surprisingly subtle, almost ordinary. Fascinating, Crix whispered, forgetting themselves for a moment. Luna's ears twitched, and she turned to look directly at Crix. The young scientist's scales rippled with alarm, but before they could retreat, Luna did something unexpected. She meowed. It wasn't the earth-shattering sound Crix had been led to expect from their briefings. It was soft, almost musical. Luna jumped down from the windowsill and approached Crix, tail held high in a question mark. Every instinct told Crix to flee, but their scientific training held them in place. They activated their personal data recorder with a trembling hand. Subject approaches voluntarily. Showing no signs of aggression. Curious behavior pattern inconsistent with Supreme Entity protocols. Luna rubbed against Crix's leg, purring. The young Rakan's scales exploded in a rainbow of confusion. Energy transfer detected, Crix whispered into their recorder. Sensation, pleasant. Vibration frequency approximately 25 to 150 Hz. Potential communication attempt. Throwing caution to the wind, Crix slowly sank to the floor. Luna immediately climbed into their lap, kneading their scales gently before settling down. The purring intensified. This contradicts all current theories, Crix muttered, carefully extracting their data pad while trying not to disturb Luna. Supreme entities shouldn't display such affectionate behavior. For the next hour, Crix documented everything. The way Luna's whiskers twitched, her breathing patterns, the varying intensities of her purrs. When they tentatively stroked her fur, they were amazed by its softness. No weapon they'd ever encountered felt like this. The sound of approaching footsteps sent Crix into a panic, but before they could move, Ambassador Morgan appeared in the doorway. The human stopped, taking in the scene, a young Rakan scientist covered in diagnostic equipment, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a contented cat in their lap. To Crix's surprise, Morgan smiled. "I see Luna's made a new friend." "Ambassador." Crix's scales shifted rapidly between embarrassment and fear. "I can explain, this is authorized research into. I mean, I shouldn't be here, should I?" Morgan sat down nearby, moving slowly to avoid disturbing Luna. "Actually, I think you're exactly where you need to be. You're the first Rakan I've seen approach Luna without fear." "Why is that?" Crix's scales settled into a thoughtful blue. Scientific curiosity overcame cultural protocol. I noticed discrepancies between our intelligence reports and observed behavior. The energy readings, the interaction patterns, none of it aligns with our understanding of supreme entities. Supreme entities? Morgan's eyebrows rose. "Is that what your people think cats are?" The next few hours changed everything. As Luna dozed between them, Morgan explained the true nature of cats, their evolution alongside humans, their domestication, their role as companions. Crix's data pad filled with notes, their scales shifting between amazement and embarrassment as each misconception was gently corrected. But the physics-defying movements? The apparent ability to phase through force fields? Crix asked. Morgan laughed. Cats are incredibly agile and can squeeze through small spaces because of their flexible collarbones. As for force fields, I hate to break it to you, but Luna just walked around them. Cats are great at finding alternate paths. Crix's scales settled into a deep purple of realization. Our entire diplomatic strategy is based on a fundamental misunderstanding. The High Council needs to know. Wait, Morgan held up a hand. Before you report this, consider something. This misunderstanding has brought our species together without fear or aggression. Maybe we can use this moment to build real understanding. Luna chose that moment to stretch, placing one paw on each of them as if in agreement. Crix looked down at the cat, seeing her now not as a supreme entity, but as something perhaps more remarkable, a bridge between their worlds. What do you propose, Ambassador? Morgan's eyes twinkled. How about we start with the truth about cats? But this time, let's help your people see why we really consider them special, not as weapons or supreme beings, but as creatures who helped humanity learn about companionship, trust, and the importance of understanding those different from ourselves. Crix's scales shifted to a determined gold. Tomorrow, they would begin the delicate task of helping their people understand the truth. But for now, they simply sat with Morgan, sharing stories as Luna purred between them, a small creature who had inadvertently sparked a profound connection between two worlds. The warning came at midnight, Raqqa prime time. Commander Torres burst into the diplomatic quarters, his face grim. Ambassador, we have a situation. The Vril have entered the system. Rachel Morgan was already awake, reviewing reports with Crix while Luna dozed nearby. Her blood ran cold at the mention of the Vril, a species known for their aggressive expansion and weapons trafficking. How many ships? She asked, automatically reaching for Luna's carrier. 3 warships, Torres replied. They're claiming salvage rights on, ma'am, they're claiming rights to capture and study Earth's supreme weapons. They've monitored our communications with the Rackons. Crix's scales shifted to alarmed purple. This is my fault. My preliminary report about Cat's true nature must have been intercepted. The Vril still think they're superweapons. It's not your fault, Rachel assured them. But we need to act fast. Where's First Observer Nix? Already calling an emergency session of the High Council, Crix reported. But Ambassador, the Vril aren't known for their patience. As if on cue, the building's crystal walls resonated with the sound of approaching ships. Through the window, they could see three dark shapes descending through Raka Prime's atmosphere, their hulls bristling with weapons. They're not even trying to be diplomatic, Torres growled. Rachel's mind raced. The truth about cats was still known only to a small group, herself, Crix, and a few others. To most Rackons, and now to the Vril, cats were still considered incredibly powerful entities. Luna chose that moment to wake up, stretch, and hop onto the windowsill to watch the approaching ships with typical feline curiosity. Ambassador, First Observer Nix burst into the room, their scales a chaos of colors. The Vril commander demands we hand over the supreme entity or they'll. They stopped, noticing Crix's presence. Junior Science Officer, you're not authorized. They know the truth, Rachel interjected. And right now, we need every advantage we can get. Nix, I have an idea, but I need you to trust me, and to keep playing along with the misconception for just a little longer. The next hour was a flurry of activity. As the Vril ships landed in the diplomatic quarters Central Plaza, Rachel's plan took shape. Crix worked with the engineering team, while Torres coordinated with Rakan security forces. The Vril delegation emerged from their ships, tall, chitinous beings with multiple compound eyes and mandibles that clicked aggressively. Their leader, Commander ZXTK, strode forward with the confidence of someone used to taking what they wanted. We claim the Earth weapons by right of superior force, ZXTK announced through their translator. Resist, and we will take them anyway. Rachel stepped forward, Luna's carrier in her hands. The cat was, remarkably, still calm. Commander ZXTK, before you make any hasty decisions, perhaps you'd like to see exactly what you're dealing with? She opened the carrier. Luna emerged with perfect timing, stretching languidly before sitting down to groom herself, completely ignored the heavily armed Vril surrounding her. That's it? ZXTK clicked in derision. This is the supreme weapon. Oh, this is just her casual form, Rachel said smoothly. Crix, would you activate the demonstration? The young scientist pressed a button on their data pad. Suddenly, the plaza's holographic systems came to life. Dozens of images of Luna appeared all around them, each one perfectly rendered, each moving independently. The real Luna, who had been briefed with treats to stay on her small platform, watched her multiply itself with mild interest. Impossible, ZXTK whispered. The entity can create duplicates? Oh, that's nothing, Rachel continued. Luna, how about we show them why cats are really called supreme beings? On cue, the holographic cats began to move in increasingly physics-defying ways, thanks to Crix's programming. They phased through walls, appeared to manipulate gravity, and demonstrated all the capabilities the Rackons had initially feared, but now enhanced by technology to seem truly supernatural. The real Luna chose this perfect moment to do something completely ordinary but seemingly impossible. She squeezed through a gap in the decorative fencing that looked far too small for her body. The Vril delegation stepped back as one. Commander ZXTK's mandibles quivered. And, how many of these beings does Earth possess? Oh, millions, Rachel said casually. They live in almost every human home. We consider them part of our families. In fact, trying to take one would be. She let the sentence hang meaningfully. The Vril commander's compound eyes darted between the real Luna, the holograms, and their ships. Finally, they clicked their mandibles in submission. Perhaps we were hasty in our salvage claims. The Vril Consortium recognizes Earth's prior claim to these entities. As the Vril hastily retreated to their ships, First Observer Nix turned to Rachel, their scales showing a mix of admiration and amusement. You used their own misconceptions against them. Sometimes the best defense is letting others believe what they want to believe, Rachel smiled. Though we should probably start working on a gradual way to introduce the truth to the wider galaxy. Luna returned to Rachel's side, rubbing against her leg as if nothing unusual had happened. Crix, still monitoring their data pad, looked thoughtful. You know, even knowing the truth, I think cats might still be supreme beings, just not in the way we thought. Rachel watched as Luna accepted treats from both human and Rakan hands, purring contentedly. You might be right about that, Crix. You might be right about that indeed. 1 month after the Vril incident, the Grand Assembly Hall of Raka Prime hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from 12 star systems had come to witness the signing of the Earth-Rakan Alliance Treaty. But more importantly, they had come to learn the truth about cats. Rachel Morgan stood at the podium, Luna curled contentedly in a bed nearby, visible to all. The audience was a spectacular sight, Rakan scales shifting in waves of anticipation, delegates from other species murmuring amongst themselves, all eyes alternating between the Supreme Being and the human ambassador. Friends, allies, honored guests, Rachel began, today we're here to celebrate more than just a treaty. We're here to correct a misunderstanding that, paradoxically, helped us discover a deeper truth. Crix, now promoted to Chief of Interspecies Research, operated the holographic displays as Rachel spoke. Images appeared above the assembly, cats throughout human history, from ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs to modern-day homes. When the Rakans first discovered Earth, they saw our relationship with cats and drew some interesting conclusions, Rachel continued, drawing scattered laughs from those already in the know. They believed cats were supreme beings, weapons of unimaginable power. And while that's not technically true, in a way, they weren't entirely wrong. The displays showed new images, cats comforting sick children in hospitals, therapy cats helping trauma survivors, barn cats protecting food supplies, cats keeping watch over their human companions. Cats aren't supreme beings because of supernatural powers or advanced technology. They're remarkable because they taught humanity some of our most important lessons. About trust. About connection. About finding strength in gentleness. First Observer Nix stepped forward, their scales a serene blue. When we first observed Earth, we saw what we expected to see, power expressed through force. We interpreted cats' abilities through the lens of weapons and warfare. But thanks to Ambassador Morgan, Junior Officer Crix, and yes, Luna herself, we learned to see differently. Luna chose this moment to wake from her nap, stretch, and jump directly into Crix's lap, drawing gasps from those delegates who still weren't used to such casual interaction with a supreme being. Crix's scales rippled with pleasure as they gently stroked Luna's fur. The true power of cats, Crix addressed the assembly, their scales glowing with confidence, lies not in dominance but in their ability to bridge differences. They demonstrate that strength can be soft, that power can be gentle, and that true supremacy might just be the ability to take a nap in the middle of an interplanetary crisis. Laughter rippled through the hall, tension dissolving as understanding dawned. Rachel watched as delegates from various species began sharing their own stories. It seemed every spacefaring race had misinterpreted something about another culture, often with similarly humorous results. The Vril representative, newly assigned after the previous diplomatic disaster, clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps we should establish an interspecies cultural exchange program to prevent such misunderstandings in the future. An excellent suggestion, Rachel agreed. And I know just where we can start. 3 months later, the first interplanetary cat cafe opened in the diplomatic quarter of Raka Prime. Crix, now its chief scientific advisor, had worked with Earth's top veterinarians and feline behaviorists to create a space where visitors from across the galaxy could interact with cats in a controlled, comfortable environment. Rachel stood with Nyx, watching as a group of young Rackens learned the proper way to approach and pet a cat from a human instructor. Luna, now something of a celebrity, supervised from her favorite perch. You know, Nyx mused, their scales showing the deep gold of wisdom. When I first discovered cats, I thought they would change everything because they were weapons. I never imagined they would change everything by teaching us peace. Cats have a way of doing that, Rachel smiled. They make us slow down, observe more carefully, connect more deeply. Maybe that's their real superpower. As if to demonstrate, Luna descended from her perch and walked between them, rubbing against both human and Racken legs equally, her purr echoing in the space between worlds. In her private quarters that evening, Rachel composed her final official report on the cat incident. What began as a comical misunderstanding has evolved into something profound. The Rackens, in their initial error, helped us see our oldest companions in a new light. Cats may not be the supreme beings they were first thought to be, but they prove to be something perhaps more valuable, a reminder that the greatest power often lies not in our ability to dominate, but in our capacity to connect. Luna jumped onto her desk, walking across the report and settling on the keyboard, as cats had done since the invention of writing. Rachel scratched behind her ears, earning a contented purr. And some things, she added to her report, are universal across all species. In the years that followed, the Earth-Racken Alliance became a model for interspecies cooperation. The Great Cat Misunderstanding, as it came to be known, was taught in diplomatic schools as a primer on the importance of cultural perspective and the unexpected ways understanding can be reached. And in the Racken archives, in a special display case, they kept a simple Earth cat toy, a small red dot from a laser pointer, as a reminder that sometimes the most profound truths come disguised as the simplest things, and that wisdom, like cats, often arrives on silent feet.